most of my research is in looking at learning technologies in the context of K-12 education, and what I would envision is that students now have become playing an intricate role in terms of helping, working with researchers and designers, whether in companies or some other organization or institution, and actually designing various kinds of learning technologies such as games. Communities, folks in communities are doing this in some regards now, but I envision where actually students are actually playing a role in the classroom and actually helping with developmental efforts. I don't see why they can't.
5 years from now, I see it now. Cyber learning is just a moment of now. Things change so drastically within day to day. Like, for example, right now I just connected with my students via Skype. And I'm planning to teach them via Skype in a couple hours, So it's something that 5 years from now, if I could have a wish list of the things that I wanted to do, I would love to see myself maybe coming to a conference such as this one and still not being able to interrupt my teaching and my curriculum. And that way my kids can still see me virtually and they can still see the curriculum and nothing has been moved or shifted out of place. And I hope that 5 years from now is just going to be their way of learning and just the way for the future. And I think that's where we need to deviate from the old drastic ways of teaching, and we actually need to make sure that our students become more college ready. And by doing cyber learning, what better way to get students ready for college?
I think we're at a very exciting moment in history where I think in 5 years we're going to not have cyber learning conferences because that's what everybody's going to be doing, and it's just going to be taken for granted, just like the internet is taken for granted now, and as we heard this morning. So, and that's really a sign of success. People stopped thinking of AI as AI when it showed up in video games, and now it's just a video game. So, in 5 years, I think we're going to really see the explosion of the use of a whole range of learning technologies, some very simple, some maybe more advanced like what we're seeing here today, but nonetheless permeating school, teachers empowered with sort of more analytics, more visibility into what their students are learning through the technology.
I think that cyber learning is going to expand beyond typical settings, and we're going to be looking at large amounts of data that are coming from users' interactions with all forms of technology. And we're going to see technologies and tools that expand and recognize the learning that takes place outside of the school day and outside of a certain age band or within a certain confined space. And seeing that change more dramatically and getting some radical ideas as to who can do what is ultimately what I think cyber learning will look like.
5 years from now, I think it will be more of a relationship between kids and students and teachers, where they actually can interact and have conversations about topics because of using cyber learning. Because there will be more hands-on, there will be more experiments, there will be more inquiry from them, back and forth, where actually it's more I learn from you, and you learn from me, than they just like I'm telling you what to learn.
One of the topics that comes up is learning analytics, and that's a big topic right now. So for teachers, not only are they going to have to, as Elliot Soloway was saying, have an understanding of how to teach with these technologies, but how can we help teachers make sense of the data that students may be producing from these technologies so that they can adjust their teaching or they can pay different kinds of attention to the students almost real time, as that data is coming in. And so having these very, very data-rich environments that have the tools, but also have tools for teachers to understand just what it is their students are or are not learning. You're starting to see some of that now, and I think 5 years from now, we're going to see a lot more in terms of almost information dashboards for teachers or trying to have a better understanding of what's going on in their class. Because 5 years from now, classes may not necessarily even be physically co-located. Right? With virtual environments, who knows, your students may be all over the globe. And how are you going to understand what's going on in your now virtual classroom from that perspective?
This came up several times today, and that was the mismatch between interfaces and how people think and how people learn. And so the particular work we're doing at USC with virtual humans is to take that barrier down even further, to make computers more human-like, to enable better communication. So my hope would be that this hurdle that interferes with learning quite frequently will continue to be less of a barrier. The term ubiquitous computing has been tossed around. We might need ubiquitous learning, where technology is supporting learning, but the learner has no idea technology is involved, or they forget that technology is involved. I think that would be, I would hope to see us getting closer to that in 5 years.
I think cyber learning, the innovative work is going to be in students creating their own media, creating their own cyber learning experiences with technology. That we still need technologists that create environments that are accessible to kids, but much more about student engagement in creating the media and their own learning experiences. Whether it gets into mainstream education, I'm not sure.
5 years from now, we're going to be seeing cyber learning expanding beyond where we oftentimes think to look for learning, expanding beyond these existing physical or temporal boundaries. We're going to see different age groups, and new technologies are seeking to bridge these things, as well as generating so much information that we're going to be able to understand learners' interactions across a range of media. So there's a lot of huge opportunities for innovations in data analysis, a lot of opportunities for innovations in making learning happen anytime, anywhere, with anyone.
Elliot Soloway and Kathleen Norris were talking about, the learning being everywhere, anywhere. I mean, I know myself, these days when I'm out to dinner with friends and someone will say something, I pull out my smartphone and I go and I find out right away, no, Johnny Unitas didn't win that game or whatever it might be, And so I think just the notion of having a tool that's always there, always on, always available to support you, not just about trivia, obviously, but in making decisions and so forth. I think that's going to be more and more ubiquitous, and to the degree that we can incorporate learning opportunities into those tools, and we've certainly seen a lot of that here, I think the future's bright.
We want to create a Wikipedia 5.0 like multimedia system that starts off with the very high-end material, like a TED Talk or some of the talks we've seen here today, and then quickly follows that up with hands-on activities. So in Synthetic Life, you might have a TED Talk by Craig Venter, who invented Synthetic Life, followed up with a NOVA program or National Geographic, and then a hands-on activity of maybe sequencing some DNA or going on to Protein Folded and getting some first-hand experience. All the way down at the bottom, you'd have MIT OpenCourseware that would tell you how to do this. In between, you could participate in the iGEM's International Machine Genetically Modified Machines. And so you have this pathway of expertise from anybody can start at the top, ask and answer their questions all the way down, and ask and answer each other's questions, and become a world-class expert in whatever disciplines we create modules for.
I'd like to see it head towards more individualization and adaptive, intelligent learning environments to help people all over the place, whether, in poor countries around the world, in our own poor areas, our rich areas too. We have to challenge those who excel and who don't fit into that average mentality that people like to think about. So that's where I hope it'll go.
The whole point of the web is that learning goes to the learner, and it turns the usual transaction on its head, where people had to come to the source of learning, the teacher, in order to learn. Now learning goes to the learner.